Exposed. A bride's incredible journey from hidden bruises to transformative love on the ranch. Jenna felt the weight of the world pressing against her chest as she tightened the wrap around her arm. Beneath the layers of worn flannel and faded denim, bruises marred her skin, a silent testament to a life bound by power and control. Once a passionate veterinarian aspiring to heal and nurture the wounded, now she was just a woman tethered to a wealthy rancher who relished in manipulation. The sprawling Montana fields glimmered under the midday sun. Yet it was a gilded cage she roamed, one that stifled her spirit. Here, amidst the animals she adored, each gentle nick from her husband's hand painted a haunting mural of expectations and constraints, a stark contrast to her once vibrant dreams. As Jenna walked between the rows of hay bales, memories surged. She could see her father mending the old barn, hands worn yet steady, an embodiment of resilience that once ignited her own fire. Her mother's laughter echoed in her ears, a cherished sound now overshadowed by the stark reality of judgment and violence. Every step felt like a tether pulling her back into darkness. Each animal she tended a reminder of the freedom she craved but could not grasp. Why'd she let herself be trapped in a life so far removed from her dreams? Questions spiraled, amplifying her internal conflict. Did she dare challenge the life laid before her? And then there was Ethan, the ranch hand whose laughter belied the weight of the past he carried. Their accidental encounters bloomed into conversations rich with understanding, rekindling flames of a forgotten hope within Jenna's heart. As they worked together, the tension between their realities flickered like a candle in the wind. She felt alive when they shared ideas about sustainable farming, a passion she never thought she'd rediscover. However, each shared smile caused her stomach to churn. The reality of their disparate worlds was unyielding. Her heart yearned while her mind fought. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amidst stolen moments of laughter, Jenna's joy battled with conflicting dread. Every glance from Ethan was weighed down by the fear of her husband's retribution, the very man who concealed secrets that could topple the frail structure of her life. Should she dare challenge the status quo for a love that felt intoxicating, yet dangerously uncharted? A part of her hungered for a second chance, while another recoiled, horrified of what truth might emerge from the shadows. Just then, the weight of an unexpected revelation crumbled her resolve. An old photograph slipped from her husband's desk, one she shouldn't recognize at all. Faces grinned back, faces that spoke of hidden legacies, and with it came the tidal wave of doubt crashing onto her shore of certainty. A familiar voice echoed from the past, filled with threats that held her captive before. Was this the moment she would confront not only her husband, but the very foundation of her life? The swirling storm of love and loyalty left her breathless, the choice looming one that could fortify her courage or annihilate her entirely. And as she stood there, shaking yet determined, doubt clawed at her mind, suggesting that perhaps true freedom came at a cost she had yet to fathom. Jenna's heart raced as the revelation of the photograph lingered in her mind, each beat echoing the suffocating reality of her situation. The laughter from the animals around her felt surreal, almost mocking in their innocence. Would they understand the war raging within her? Venturing deeper into the barn, she sought solace in the familiar scent of hay and the soft nickers of the horses. There, beneath the muted light filtering through the wooden beams, was her sanctuary, a space to grapple with the choice ahead. But grappling was no longer enough. Jenna felt the pang of desperation ease into determination, as if the flicker of hope ignited by conversations with Ethan had coaxed something dormant within her. And in this moment, she realized she was staring at a pivotal crossroad, At last, her past powerlessness began to unravel. In the corner of her mind, her father's words resurfaced. Strength comes not just from muscle, but from conviction. She and T made it this far only to concede to fear. If she was to break free from the chains of her life, she had to first face herself a confrontation she had interminably avoided. Ultimately, it was fear that had kept her tethered to her husband's cruel whims. But now, it was that very fear that fueled her resolve. Jenna knew she couldn't meander through this transformation without clarity. She needed a plan. She had acquired skills in veterinary medicine that could empower her, awaken her potential. The concept of starting anew didn't merely feel risky, it felt like liberation. Her interaction with Ethan had opened her eyes to sustainable farming practices and the potential for community engagement, areas that ignited a fire she thought extinguished. They discussed not just animals, but ecosystem balance and the harmony of nurturing the land. Each conversation was a thread, weaving an intricate tapestry of possibility she yearned to explore. Yet, beyond the thrill of new ideas simmered a relentless fear of discovery. The photograph loomed a beacon of hidden truths. Her husband's history felt like barbed wire around her throat, constricting her ability to breathe freely. Trust was a dangerous gambit, yet without it, how could she hope to build a new life? Ethan's laughter had felt like a balm to her bruised soul, but how could she harbor any hope when her world was saturated with shadow? With purpose crystallizing in her chest, she sat down next to the quiet mare in the corner stall, the creature's warm breath soothing her tangled thoughts. The mare nuzzled her shoulder, and in that moment, Jenna made a silent vow. She would reclaim her life, brimming with authenticity, starting by confronting her husband with the truths she had unearthed. The plan took shape an assertion of her independence, a potential eject button from the confines of a life shackling her spirit. She had endured too much to remain stagnant, to allowing fear to dictate her choices. Jenna envisioned gathering the photograph, revealing its secrets in the light of day, challenging the indifference of her husband. The thought sent shivers down her spine. As Jenna stood, newly resolved, the barn felt charged, a testament to her acceptance of the storm that lay ahead. The world outside kept moving, oblivious to the battles within its depths. But she would no longer be passive in her own story. Her journey toward a life unencumbered had only just begun. With each step, the photograph burned in a pocket of her mind, a silent reminder of her past and the ties she had to sever. The choices she made next would ripple beyond her, all the way to Ethan. Would he stand by her side, or would he become another complication in the fight for her freedom? The weight of her decision pressed heavily, yet the urgency was undeniable. She had to act. The moment of confrontation loomed, and, as she ascended the path to her husband's study, a potent mix of fear and hope coursed through her veins. Would she have the strength to transform her fear into action, or would the shadows of her past prove too daunting? The threshold to her new life was inches away, but first, she had to step through the darkness into the light. Jenna's footsteps echoed softly on the polished hardwood as she approached her husband's study. Each stride seemed both monumental and trivial, a paradox embodying the gravity of the moment intertwined with the weight of her shame. She paused for a breath, inhaling deeply, her senses sharpened by the tense atmosphere. The familiar scent of polished wood and aged leather filled her lungs, yet it mixed with a bitterness that tasted like betrayal. This was a space that had harbored too many secrets, a sanctuary for her husband where lies thrived in shadows. Jenna brushed a hand against the doorframe, grounding herself as she felt the photograph's cold presence in her pocket. It felt like a shard of her past, sharp enough to cut, yet potent enough to provide the clarity she desperately sought. Collecting herself, she pushed the door open with conviction. Michael sat behind his expansive mahogany desk, engrossed in paperwork, unaware of the tempest about to unfold. His brows were furrowed in concentration, a stark contrast to the carefree laughter that now felt so distant in Jenna's mind. The air shifted, She could almost taste the anticipation crackling between them. "Jenna, you're home early," he said absent-mindedly, barely glancing up from his documents. The casual indifference in his tone ignited a fire within her, pushing her further into her resolve. "Michael, we need to talk," she stated, her voice steadier than she felt. His gaze snapped to her, surprise evident in his eyes. "What about?" He leaned back in his chair, the easy confidence of a man who had always held the upper hand evident in his posture. Suppressing the instinct to recoil, Jenna stepped forward, her heart pounding like a war drum. "About us," she asserted, emphasizing the weight of the conversation. The corners of his mouth curled slightly, mocking her intent. "Jenna, let us not make this more complicated than it has to be. Complication is all there has been, Michael. I can't ignore it anymore." Jenna took a breath, the knot in her throat tightening. "I found something," she said, retrieving the photograph from her pocket. His expression shifted, concern flaring briefly before it settled into a calculating calm. "Is that what you think I'm worried about? Why think doesn't he matter? It's what S real that does." Her voice wavered, but remained assertive. With trembling hands, she thrust the photograph on the desk. "Do you even care what you put me through? This isn't just about you anymore." The tension thickened, suffocating yet liberating, as Michael's demeanor morphed from dismissal to indignation. He rose, slamming his palms against the desk. "You're making a huge mistake, Jenna. This is not who you are." "Maybe," she shot back, emotions surging as adrenaline coursed through her veins. "But you've done everything to keep me there. Haven't you? You've kept me in a cage of your design. Cages can be comforting, you know." His voice dripped with disdain. "I provide for you. I take care of our lives. Lives built on a foundation of deception." Jenna's breath hitched, the fight within transforming into raw vulnerability. "I deserve the truth, even if it hurts." For a moment, silence draped over the room like a heavy blanket. The balance of power shifted, and Jenna realized the truth of her revelation. This confrontation was not just about Michael, but about her, reclaiming her voice. Was this newfound strength powerful enough to withstand the storm? Michael crossed his arms, betrayal simmering beneath his surface. "What are you going to do with that?" "I'm going to use it to set myself free." She met his gaze with unwavering determination. Her statement hung in the air, and as her pulse quickened, the image of her future unfurled in her mind, a life uninhibited by fear. Jenna surveyed his reaction, searching for a glimpse of the man she once loved. Was he capable of change, or was this just another step in an inevitable downward spiral? In that charged silence, the seeds of her resolve began to take root. The stakes had never felt higher, and, as she took a step back, she felt the tug of possibilities. But now, as tension dripped from her every word, Jenna realized that the truth may free her, but would also invite conflict. Would he rise to her challenge, or would she be met with the resolve of a man unready to face his sins? With the photograph still laid bare on the desk, Jenna felt the next movement circle like a wolf ready to pounce. What lay beyond this confrontation was a battle not just against Michael's nature, but against her own resolve, one that would demand every ounce of strength she had just summoned. As she prepared for the possibility of irrevocable change, she knew she wasn't just unveiling a photograph. She was unearthing the layers of a life built on shadows. What would the reveal cost her, and how far was she willing to go for her freedom? As the tension settled, Jenna took a moment to recalibrate her thoughts. Michael's formidable presence hovered over her like an oppressive storm cloud, but it was also a burning beacon of realization. No longer would she be defined by his choices or the suffocating comforts of their life together. She had to navigate this treacherous landscape, not just as a victim, but as an architect of her own destiny. "Let us start over," she suggested, her words infused with a new resolve. Not with apologies or justifications, but with the truth, unvarnished. She wasn't merely seeking an admission from Michael. She was demanding a foundation upon which to build something new, even if it meant building it alone. Michael's features tightened, and for a flicker of a second, Jenna could see uncertainty overshadow his arrogance. You really think you can walk away from this? He finally asked, an edge of disbelief lacing his tone. It's your actions that have led me here, not my desires, she shot back, unable to suppress a hint of bitterness. Each word felt liberating, like shedding layers of skin, raw yet necessary. The silent war of glances continued, each minute stretching into eternity. She realized this was not just a confrontation. This was her first step towards self-reclamation. Within the heavy stillness, Jenna began to dig deeper, her voice lowering as vulnerability bled into her strength. I've lost parts of myself living this lie. I need to know who I am without your prefix. His expression morphed from disbelief to a darkening frustration. Jenna, you don't understand how easy it is to throw everything away. You don't have to validate any of this. You can just go back to how things were. Back to what, Michael? Back to ignorance? Back to a facade that makes me weak? The flush of anger shot through her again, but this time it fueled her. That's what you want to keep me muted, to keep me caged. Suddenly, she remembered her own capabilities. Years ago, before the wedding ring trapped her spirit, she had been a published writer, famed for penning stories that inspired and resonated with countless readers. The absence of that creative force in her life had only deepened the fractures between them. The photograph wasn't just a reminder of betrayal. It was a reminder of her potential. I used to write, she confessed, her voice softer but steady. I pour my heart into words, into stories. I can't be scared anymore. I let fear silence me. Her current reality felt like a prison, yet she could already feel glimmers of resilient hope igniting within her. For the first time, Jenna saw doubt flicker across Michael's face. The confidence that once enveloped him as a protective armor began to fracture as her words pierced through. You might think you know me, but I'm a different person now. I refuse to feel small anymore. Michael shifted, discomfort radiating from him, a predator threatened by the awakening of its prey. And what will you do with that awakening? Right, she replied without hesitation, a surge within her pushing back against the weight of his expectations. I'll write my own ending. You've lived your truth for too long. It's time I define mine. The shift was palpable. The air thickened with something new, something daring. Jenna realized that this was more than a personal battle. This was a war over her very identity. With newfound clarity, she stepped closer, daring herself to engage. You either confront your truth with me, or you let me go. I'm not going to stay in a relationship built on your conditions. This time, the silence felt less suffocating and more like fertile ground. Jenna stood there, heart racing, the concept of freedom stretching out before her like a vast, uncharted landscape. What she didn't yet grasp was that navigating this pathway could either heal or devastate them both. As the quiet settled, Jenna thought about the still hidden frustrations simmering beneath the surface of their fractured love. She wondered what it truly meant to walk away from a life that, for so long, had seemed like the only option. The photograph now felt like both a talisman and a threat, signifying the promise of her own revelation, but also the fear of emotional turmoil that could ensue. While Michael grappled with her resolute demand, Jenna took a breath and wondered, would he acknowledge her awakening or retaliate against it? This moment was pivotal, a test of her newfound identity against a tide of emotional chaos. Yet even as she braced for whatever was to come, Jenna felt as though each heartbeat was a declaration. She was ready to dismantle the facade, to lay bare the truth. On the edge of irrevocable decisions, Jenna prepared herself for Michael's response. Would he embrace her change, or would he resort to the very tactics that had long kept her confined? Jenna could feel the electric tension between them pulse with every passing second. Michael's silence was suffocating, yet within it lay the space she needed to contemplate her next moves. The weight of what she had just confronted lingered in the air, a tangible force urging her to push forward. She exhaled slowly, gathering her thoughts. Michael's disbelief didn't merely hurt. It ignited an ember of rebellion deep within her, driving her desire to reclaim her voice. Still, uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Would she truly have the strength to rewrite her narrative, to cast aside the comforts of the past in pursuit of her dreams? As the air thickened with unspoken words, she considered her options. Jenna had learned to remain silent, an act cultivated over years of bleak resentment. But without that silence, a storm brewed within her, a tempest of creativity waiting to unleash once more. She envisioned herself rediscovering her identity as a writer, reclaiming the passion that had once fueled her. "Jenna," he finally spoke, his voice strained but surprisingly even. "This isn't just about you. We built this life together." That claim stung. Jenna shook her head resolutely. "What you consider a life is a cage to me. Don't pretend this is a partnership when it's been your way or the highway." The directness of her words startled even her. For years, she had tiptoed around his moods, avoiding conflict at any cost. But there was no cost worth the sacrifice of her soul, and she refused to spiral back into that fear. "What are you going to write, Jenna? Fiction? Something to pretend it's all okay? Or will you hit me with the truth?" Michael challenged, his tone bitterness-laden, likely a defense mechanism as he faced the unexpected shift. "The truth is inherently messy," she said, seizing the moment. "It's awkward, uncomfortable, and sometimes people get hurt. But I'm done hiding behind a facade just to keep the peace." In that instant, Jenna realized the irony of their situation. She had spent so long appeasing him. Yet now it was her own peace she needed to protect, her creative spirit, her ambitions, her very self. "Then what do you expect me to do with your truth?" he asked, skepticism etching his features. "Support me, or let me walk away." Every word dripped with the bittersweet flavor of liberation. Her heart raced as she braced for his reaction, his disbelief instantaneously giving way to anger. "You want to walk away after everything we've built? You think it's as simple as that?" His voice rose, turbulent waves crashing against the steady shore of her newfound resolve. "It's as simple as me understanding my worth," Jenna replied. "Every day spent afraid has robbed me of my passion, of my dreams. I owe it to myself to chase them." The conviction in her voice surprised her, and beneath that surprise was an exhilarating thrill. "Chasing dreams doesn't pay the bills, Jenna. It doesn't secure a future," he scoffed, but the tremor in his voice belied his confidence. "Maybe that's where we fundamentally differ," she countered, her heart pounding with audacity. "I'm tired of sacrificing my essence to uphold an illusion. Fear won't tether me anymore." In that moment, she recognized something powerful within herself, a lump of self-worth that had been dormant for far too long. Yet, with every incremental shift within her, she felt the gravity of this newfound identity balance precariously between freedom and loneliness. The struggle to stand her ground also meant facing the potential isolation of leaving behind a life she had once cherished. As Michael's face hardened, enveloped in disbelief and frustration, the chasm between them widened. But she steeled herself and whispered, "I'd rather face the unknown on my own than choose to live in a familiar prison." The furious silence screamed around them, punctuated by the dark clouds of unresolved feelings swirling above. Would Michael awaken to the reality of their lives, or would he cling to the safety of denial? Jenna realized she had passed a threshold. She could no longer return to the quiet acceptance of her past. With her heart thudding wildly, Jenna turned her gaze towards the door that led to freedom. She felt as though she stood on a precipice, staring down into both uncertainty and possibility. Could she find the courage to leap into her own future, even in the face of his resistance? As her pulse quickened, the looming question echoed in her mind like a siren song. What awaited her in the spaces she had yet to explore, both on the page and within herself? Jenna stepped through the door, her heart a wild drum, the chaos behind her replaced with the fresh air of the world outside. For the first time in years, the sensation of liberation filled her lungs, and with every breath, she distanced herself from the shadows of her past. She felt raw yet alive, a canvas waiting to be painted anew. Her feet took her to a nearby cafe, a quaint little spot she used to visit for inspiration. As she settled into a corner with her notebook, her fingers trembled with both anticipation and fear. The barista's warm smile felt like a glimmer of validation, but Jenna's mind was still churning with unease. She had spent so long editing herself, her thoughts stifled, her passions submerged beneath layers of compromise. Finding a voice again was not a straightforward task. It required venturing into the depths of her reality. With a pen poised above the blank page, she forced herself to confront the swirling emotions. The stories trapped inside her were longing to escape, stories of resilience, pain, and the struggle for autonomy. But how to begin? The fear of judgment loomed still, threatening to snuff out the flickering flame of her courage. "You can't please everyone," she muttered under her breath, a reminder to herself that authenticity had its price. She wrote about Michael, not merely as an antagonist, but as a significant chapter of her life that had shaped her into who she was. With each word, she unearthed feelings she had buried deep: the resentment, the betrayal that had wedged between them like a separating chasm, and finally, the realization of her own strength. An hour slipped away as she poured her heart onto the pages, and the more she wrote, the clearer her vision became. This wouldn't just be a story about her leaving. It had to be a narrative of growth, of discovering who she had been beneath the layers of obligation and expectation. Jenna shifted her focus from the past's shadows to the potential of her future, a future where honesty reigned, where her words could spark change. As she penned passages, moments of clarity struck like lightning. The comfort zone she had lingered in felt increasingly stifling. What if this honesty didn't just serve her, but also inspired others? Every woman who had felt trapped, every soul who had lost sight of their passion because of fear, perhaps they could see their own reflections in her journey. Suddenly, she felt a rush of adrenaline, an electrifying conviction, her mind racing ahead. What if she entered a writing contest, one that challenged participants to share their truth? The idea began to form, a narrative woven not only from her pain, but also from her triumph, revealing layers of herself she had kept hidden. The thrill of possibility danced through her, igniting her resolve further. Yet doubt latched on. What if Michael interfered, attempting to unravel her newfound ambition? The thought of confronting him again, of facing that storm, sent her spiraling back briefly into hesitation. Would he belittle her passion, dismissing it as folly? In that instant, she decided she could no longer allow his perception of her to dictate her path. Jenna took a deep breath and gripped her pen tighter, her ink becoming a weapon, her words armor. As she continued to write, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting hues of gold and crimson through the cafe windows. Outside, the world bustled with life, people living their truths in various forms. Jenna glanced back at the door through which she had walked just hours earlier, and a smile crept across her face. Her adventure had truly begun. She envisioned herself standing not only as a writer, but as someone willing to reject silence and embrace authenticity. And as she penned the closing lines of her first draft, a new certainty dawned within her. The time had come to face Michael, not to seek validation, but to claim her space in their shared vision of life. This confrontation would ignite her true metamorphosis, a moment of upheaval that would either tear them further apart or help them evolve into something entirely different. With an unwavering hand, Jenna wrote about standing her ground, fully aware that she was on the brink of an explosive revelation. The challenge lay ahead, but she was ready. What awaited her on the other side of her confrontation? And would it forge a path towards reconciliation, or was it the final chapter penned in the story of her past? Jenna walked out of the cafe, notebook clutched tightly against her chest, her mind whirling with thoughts of the confrontation that lay ahead. Visions of Michael flickered in her mind, the familiar mix of anger and longing tugging at her heart. The sense of liberation she had felt moments ago began to twist into a complex, knot of dread and anticipation. Would he see the changes in her? Would he try to pull her back into the shadows from which she had just emerged? The sun illuminated her path, but Jenna felt the weight of her past shadowing her steps. Each footfall echoed her determination. She was no longer the woman who tiptoed around his ego, afraid to assert her worth. She was a person deserving of respect and honesty. Each of Jenna's breaths became a mantra of resilience, solidifying her resolve as she neared his apartment. When she arrived, the door looked imposing, a barrier that beckoned memories of their past, but also served as a portal to her future. Jenna hesitated, her heart racing, fingers brushing against the brass knocker. Would she be met with understanding or resistance? The answer lay within her grasp, a test she had to face alone. As the door swung open, she found Michael leaning against the frame, a bemused expression on his face. "Jenna," he said, surprise flickering in his eyes. "I was expecting you." "I need to talk," she declared, her voice more steadfast than she felt inside. It was time to shed the remnants of fear that had choked her silence for far too long. He led her into the familiar space that had once felt like a cage. She surveyed the room, observing how the memories clung to the walls like old paint, faded and peeling, unable to blend into the brighter colors of her new self. "What's this about?" he asked, taking a seat, his posture casual, but his eyes wary. "About us. About me." Each word struck a chord, reverberating with the confidence she was building. She felt like an artist preparing to unveil a masterpiece, layers peeling back to reveal the truth beneath. "Jenna, I know things haven't been perfect, but perfect?" She interrupted, her heart pounding. "This isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, about being real with each other." The heat of her passion ignited a glow within her, steadying her breath against the rising tide of vulnerability. Michael's brow furrowed, confusion etched across his face. "I don't understand. What are you trying to say? I can't just run away from my feelings or your judgment anymore. I've been hiding, scared of what you might think or say. But I can't live like that. I've started writing again, telling my truth. And I refuse to let anyone derail me from that path, even you." His silence bore down heavily as the weight of her words hung in the room. Jenna felt bare, yet unyielding. She had exposed her heart, not for the validation of his approval, but to reclaim her voice, to assert her belief in herself. "What if I don't support this?" he finally asked, hesitating. "Then I guess we won't have much in common anymore." The bluntness of her response startled her, a raw honesty she hadn't realized she was capable of expressing. For a moment, Michael's expression shifted. Beneath the uncertainty, she glimpsed something deeper, perhaps fear too. Fear of losing her. Jenna took a step closer, her voice softening. "I want to be upfront about who I am. If we can't do that together, maybe we aren't meant to be." As the realization of her own words sank in, she felt exhilarated. But Michael's response took too long. Would he resist her truth? Jenna had prepared for this confrontation, but the outcome remained suspended in the air. His indecision felt perilous, each second stretching into an eternity. "Jenna," he began slowly, and at that moment, the inevitability of her choice crashed over her like a wave. She was ready for whatever came next, regardless of the outcome. With everything hanging in the balance, she braced herself for his answer, anxious to know if this was their chance to rebuild or the moment they would truly part ways. As Michael's silence deepened, Jenna felt as if the walls of the apartment were closing in, suffocating and familiar at once. She studied his face, searching for any hint of his true feelings, but his expression remained inscrutable. With her heart pounding, Jenna realized this was the point of no return. "Jenna," he finally said, voice low as though he were gathering strength. "I don't want you to disappear again. It's not just about what I think. It's about what you need." His words sparked a flicker of hope, but Jenna held tight to her unease. "What I need is space to grow, Michael. I've been so focused on what you think of me that I've lost sight of my own voice." As she spoke, the power of her own realization washed over her, illuminating the shadows in her mind. She wasn't merely defending herself. She was advocating for her future. Michael shifted, his gaze dropping to the floor. But have you considered what I want? I've always seen potential in you. His voice was soft, but the implications loomed. Potential or not, Jenna's growth depended on more than someone else's belief in her. Potential to be what? She countered, shaking her head. Just this thing you can mold into something acceptable for your world? I need to define my own potential. In that moment, a previously unseen current surged within her. She recognized that this confrontation was as much about her independence as it was about their relationship. Each word she spoke was a step in claiming that independence. Jenna felt the weight of her past relationships, friends and lovers who had attempted to confine her within their version of happiness. She was not their project. Michael swallowed visibly, and she saw realization dawning in his eyes. His sanctuary of control was crumbling. So what do you want then? A freedom that might come at a cost? What I want is the ability to explore who I truly am without fear of judgment, to embrace my writing and connect with people who appreciate me for my authenticity. The passion behind her conviction was undeniable. Are you saying I don't appreciate you? His tone was defensive, but beneath it lay genuine anxiety. No, but I've been living in a bubble defined by your expectations. It's suffocating. Time felt elastic, stretching out with her confession, the weight of her words flooding the space between them. She felt fear ripple through her, the fear that reverberated around the corners of the heart too heavily inclined towards dependency. This isn't just about you or me. I want to invite you into this journey, but if I can't be me, then it's pointless. Michael's expression shifted again, this time softening. What if I can't give you that? The crack in his facade unnerved Jenna. She was scared of what it revealed, how easily he could slip back into that protective, limiting persona. Then, she hesitated. Maybe we have to accept that our paths are diverging. An ache settled in her chest. As the reality sank in, could she really let him go? Yet the resolve surged back. This was about her becoming the architect of her own narrative, not just editing someone else's story. Walking away didn't equate to defeat. It was freedom. Jenna, he said, apprehensive, I don't want to lose you. Then meet me in my honesty, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. If you can't, I have to protect what I've found. The look on his face was a mix of frustration and despair, and for a brief moment, she thought she might sway him. But doubt crept in. She had seen this facade before. The time felt charged, the air thick with unanswered questions, clinging like summer heat. I'll think about it, he finally said, a reluctant admission. Turning to leave, Jenna felt the heartache of uncertainty wash over her. But beneath it pulsed something far more potent. It was a sense of empowerment that she hadn't felt in years. She was setting herself free. But as she stepped outside, heart racing, Jenna knew this was not the conclusion of a chapter, but the opening of countless futures, some bright, others bleak. She needed to summon her courage to face whatever awaited her from the decision she just made and the deeper shadows still lingering in her heart. As she walked away, the faint sound of the door closing echoed behind her, and she could not shake the feeling that she had just taken a leap into the unknown. There was no turning back. With every step, an exhilarating tension swelled within her, drawing her toward a draft of change swirling just ahead, leaving her to wonder, would she be able to embrace the obstacles that lay ahead, or would the past haunt her steps once more? Jenna walked through the dimly lit streets, the cool evening air brushing against her flushed cheeks. Each breath felt like a reclaiming of her own space, the pressure of Michael's apartment lifting with every step. The decision to leave had not been just about him. It had thrust her into an unknown territory of self-discovery, and she struggled to embrace the taste of her own freedom. As she approached her small studio, Jenna paused, struck by the enormity of her choice. 1,000 thoughts spiraled in her mind. What would she write about now? Would she capture the liberation she felt, or would the shadows of her past whisper and weave through her words? She was certain the next chapter of her life demanded her attention fully, but she was still navigating trepidation. Inside, the familiar chaos of her cluttered space met her. Piles of notebooks, unfinished drafts, and half-finished coffee cups littered the table, relics of a life lived in fragments. Jenna felt an urgent need to create, to solidify her thoughts into something tangible. It was time to put her truth into words, a tangible marker of her transformation. Sitting at her desk, she opened a notebook and found a blank page staring back at her, taunting in its emptiness. It was the perfect metaphor for her state of mind. She recalled Michael's words. The pressure he put on her as well-meaning guidance had often felt like chains. Now, armed with the determination to uncover her own voice, the ink needed to flow. She wrote slowly at first, hesitant as memories flared to life. Moments of barely masked frustration, whispered conversations flavored with doubt, and the sense of being trapped within another's expectations. Each stroke fed the burgeoning fire within, igniting a boldness she forgot she possessed. What had once felt too painful to reveal transformed into cathartic release on the page. The words poured out, abandoning wishes for validation, shedding layers of artifice she believed were necessary. In documenting her fears and aspirations, Jenna recognized a potent truth. Acceptance of her vulnerability was the first step toward authentic growth. With every line she crafted, Jenna found herself breaking down the walls she had built, brick by brick. She realized that the strength she sought to cultivate lay within those cracks, a hidden resilience taking shape alongside her words. Yet, the lingering whispers of her past experiences echoed. Would her bravery be met with hesitation from the world outside her notes? Hours slipped by as she grappled deeply, the sun rising beyond the window and spilling light into the room. She felt exhilarated and terrified all at once. This was no longer a mere exercise of creativity. It had evolved into a manifesto of her rebirth. Yet still, doubt lingered like a shadow at the periphery. What if Michael decided to fight for her return? What if he dismissed her revelations, reducing them to fleeting whims? Perhaps it was time to meet her fear head-on. Taking a moment to pause, Jenna scribbled one last thought. A promise to herself, no turning back. She would seek mentorship from fellow writers, align herself with those who ignited her passion. She would venture to find supportive spaces where her voice resonated rather than diminished. But as the day broke fully, another question rose in her mind. Was she truly ready to face Michael again? Should he seek to re-enter her life? Jenna closed her notebook, the weight of her reflections still heavy on her heart. The hidden bruises from their relationship might not heal instantly, but a commitment to her authenticity was non-negotiable. As she stepped out into the daylight, she knew determination coursed through her like a fresh wind. She was ready to confront not only her fears, but anyone who dared to challenge her newfound resolve. A sense of anticipation unfurled within her as she made her way into the world. Life had shifted dramatically, and beneath the excitement lurked a tension that was both thrilling and unsettling. The moment of truth loomed just ahead. Would she brave the encounters that awaited her, no longer afraid to renegotiate her place in the world around her? Jenna stepped into the expanse of her life outside the cafe, every cell in her body humming with anticipation and an undeniable desire for change. She relocated into her studio, a sanctuary of creativity. Here, amidst the eclectic wafts of unfinished thoughts and fragments of her past, she could finally claim the voice she had long silenced. With each stroke of her pen, she began to construct a powerful narrative, one that intertwined her experiences and aspirations into a tapestry of profound clarity. The words flowed furiously, forming meandering paths of her identity. In those moments, she confronted the steep climbs of heartache and the rich valleys of hope, determining to capture not only the pain, but the metal she discovered in herself. As days turned to weeks, Jenna found herself enveloped in a thriving community of writers, each sharing their authenticity, their struggles, and their triumphant conquests. She attended workshops that encouraged her to dig deeper, unearthing stories that had remained buried beneath years of compliance and fear. Every gathering invigorated her spirit. She no longer felt alone in her fight for recognition and self-acceptance. Simultaneously, her interactions with Ethan began to flourish beyond mere camaraderie. They engaged in invigorating discussions about sustainable practices, and slowly, he became her confidant, someone who appreciated her authentic self without seeking to mold it. With Ethan by her side, she rediscovered laughter, joy, and a refreshing discovery of love grounded not in obligation, but mutual respect. During a particularly impactful writing session, Jenna conjured the courage to confront the lingering shadows of her past. In a crowded workshop, in front of an understanding audience, she chose to share her journey, her marriage, her hidden bruises, and her path toward liberation. Each revelation felt like a release, a testament to her growth and rediscovery of what it meant to be unapologetically herself. The applause from her peers resonated deeply, serving as validation that her transformation was not merely personal, but powerfully relatable to others. In the months that followed, Jenna's work became a beacon of empowerment, and she entered various contests, her writing reflecting the authentic metamorphosis she had undertaken. One day, as she sat open-mouthed reading an email from a prominent literary magazine, tears of disbelief streamed down her cheeks. It wasn't tea, just an acceptance. Jenna's piece had won a prestigious award, solidifying her place in the literary community as an authoritative voice of resilience and reclamation. Through each hurdle, Jenna transformed further, embracing her autonomy and the potential that lay in her redefined identity. She no longer cowered behind fear. Instead, the specter of Michael faded into the background, a poignant reminder of how far she had progressed. One afternoon, she confronted her past with unexpected palpability. Michael reached out after weeks of silence, the authoritative tone replaced with a touch of vulnerability. As she listened to him express regret and confusion, Jenna kept a steady pulse of poise and strength. "Jenna," he began, his usual bravado diminished. "I realize now what I lost. I'm ready to support your journey if you decide to come back." Taking a measured breath, she responded, "Michael, my journey is not about coming back. It's about moving forward." Each word felt solid, reinforced by her experiences and growth. She offered him kindness, but also a clear boundary, a line she wouldn't allow anyone to cross again. "I deserve to live my truth, and I'm not looking back for validation anymore." In that moment, Jenna understood the power of her choices and her capacity to forge a fulfilling destiny without compromise. She ended the conversation with gratitude, feeling gratitude within her. She could rise above the constraints of the past, and the life she envisioned, the one filled with creativity, freedom, and unwavering authenticity, was finally unfurling before her. With her journey well underway, Jenna continued to write, each page becoming a testament to her newfound strength. Each day felt like new growth, a persistent flourishing of the woman she had always been beneath the scars. It was her moment. She had not only survived, but thrived. As she gazed at the horizon one morning, the sun rising over her beloved Montana fields, a profound sense of peace settled deep within her. It was a serene victory, one that harmonized her past and present, reminding her of the incredible journey she had undertaken. Jenna had emerged, transformed and triumphant, ready for whatever chapter life would unfold next. Remember, this is the final chapter of Jenna's heartfelt journey. If you empathized with her transformation, you need to subscribe to the channel now to witness more inspiring stories that ignite the spirit. Leave a like to fuel the growth of this community. Show your support, because every action makes a difference. And don't forget to comment below, sharing your thoughts and insights on Jenna's incredible transformation. Finally, share this powerful narrative with at least 5 friends who need a reminder about the unstoppable power of resilience. Don't wait Even one more second to join us on this journey of overcoming your support is vital and appreciated.